All right, standards, interoperability. Those are boring topics. We're going to make them into something super interesting. I have 4 amazing panelists. Just to tell you the truth, we had 3 amazing panelists up until 5 minutes ago. So now, surprise, we have 4 amazing panelists. Right? So let's start with Jenn. Jenn from the Digital Dollar Project, please join us. Fede from Bitso, Tom from Chainlink, and Guillaume from Crédit Agricole. You can give them a round of applause. They traveled a long way over here. All right, at some point I will sit down. I just want to challenge the sound guy to see if it works. So we're going to talk today about interoperability, not just in the payments world, but also around exchanges. Fede, be on your toes. I'm going to ask you some Binance questions on Bitso, right? We're going to talk about Chainlink's protocols, and does it compete with Circle's protocol or not? People from Circle in the crowd, raise your hand. They're not here? Good. We're going to talk a lot about it then. All right? We're going to talk about interoperability for banks. If you don't know Crédit Agricole, it's the 3rd largest bank in Europe, one of the 10th largest banks in the world. And obviously, Jenn, you're going to kick us off with telling us more about who you are, what's the Digital Dollar Project, and later on, I'm going to ask you to put in a framework for this panel. Okay? So let's start with you.
Okay, great. Jenn Lassiter. I am the Executive Director at the Digital Dollar Project. We are a nonprofit based outside of Washington, D.C. We do research on digitizing FMI and the role of the US dollar in that future. Makes sense why I was invited here. And we do this through exploring many things, including US central bank digital currency, both from a regulatory and policy perspective, and conducting technical pilots with private sector partners.
Fede, on to you. That was great, Jenn.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Federico. People call me Fede. I'm from Bitso, the leading crypto exchange in Latin America. I run strategy, business development, strategic partnerships, and liquidity there. And we're really excited about being here.
Yes, you should. There's also going to be a water question. Whoever fails that gets water. Sorry.
Okay.
So, all right, go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Goldi.
Stage people are frightened by what's going to happen here. Go ahead.
Thank you all very much. First of all, I want to thank the folks from Stellar for inviting me to be here today. Very pleased to be here. My name is Tom Trepanier, Head of Capital Markets at Chainlink Labs. Chainlink Labs is a decentralized Oracle network. What I'll talk about today, though, is our cross-chain interoperability protocol. It's basically the TCP IP for a blockchain, if you will. So really looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Guillaume?
Okay, my turn. Hi, so my name is Guillaume Delatour. I am Group Digital Officer for the group Crédit Agricole. Crédit Agricole is, as you say, it's the 10th largest bank in the world. We have, I don't know exactly, but something close to 70 million retail bank accounts. We are the first insurer of Europe, and we have the biggest asset management of Europe called Amundi. And my role is to, not on the short term, but on middle term and long term, to see what every technology that emerge, see what we can do with that, see how it how it can match with conformity, with risk, with everything that we have, constraint that we have inside the bank and all these activities, and see what we can do with this. So, and there is, for blockchain crypto, to help you, there is a lot of things that we can do in DeFi and stuff like that. Not immediately applicable because there is a lot of constraint, but a lot of fun to do.
So, and we're going to try to extract some of those secrets from you. And just following on Danelle's panel, which I think was awesome with Franklin Templeton, are you the anarchist of the bank?
Sorry?
Are you the anarchist in the bank? Are you the one that's breaking the boundaries there? Are you protected by the CEO so people won't fire you in the bank?
Joker?
Yeah, okay. I'll take that as a yes. So, Jenn, give us the framework for this panel in terms of interoperability. Why does that matter?
So I think it's important when we're talking about interoperability at a global scale and we're talking about standards that we understand historically how standards have unfolded. Doesn't mean we have to do it that way moving forward, but it is a framework for consideration. So standards underpin interoperability, right? And standards typically come about as an industry-driven initiative, and they start to take hold or adoption or scale when you see reputable institutions and standard-setting bodies coming together and starting to act and perform and document in a certain way. Open source is a fantastic example of how this gets done exponentially and in a transparent manner. Once we start to see that coalescing, at the same time, which is what we're seeing now, we see governments coming together and starting to provide regulatory and policy underpinning that supports these standards that have been set. And then you trickle down and you start to see industry-specific standards. So when we're talking about standards, this includes both technical, ethical, and regulatory. And I think it's really important as we're moving through the conversation to call out which bucket we're actually talking about, because very quickly it becomes a word soup and folks get confused.
And for those of you who don't know, Jenn is like the Morgan Freeman of blockchain. Right? She comes at the end of the movie and she explains everything to you in a very great narrative.
I will solve all world problems by the end of this 40 minutes.
Yes. So let's start. Fede, I'm gonna point the first question to you, but really, I'm Israeli, so let's do this panel Israeli style. Just barge into one another, just yell at one another, it's fine. I'm gonna throw a chair at some point. So Fede, starting with you, you're one of the largest exchanges now largest exchange in crypto. Some might say that to be the largest exchange in crypto, you just need to hold on because others will just die on the way. But I think you're actually doing great work. Why do you care about, I guess, interoperability in payments? Because you guys, is it because you guys need to connect to, I don't know, 50 different payment systems because you run globally? Is it because you want to drive yourself as an exchange as a global leader in interoperability standard? Why does it matter to you?
Well, it matters on many fronts, but since we want to serve our customers in Latin America, like enabling cross-border payments for them, that's a critical part of what we want to do, what we want to achieve. And cross-border payments, as you all know, it's one of the most siloed spaces in here. Take, for example, dealing with correspondent banks, you know, and all the hoops you need to jump through, KYC issues, or when people or a company wants to do business in Brazil, they need to set up an entity there. So we'll try to solve it with Bitso by, working with all those siloed.
Give us a concrete example. What have Bitso done for humanity in interoperability lately?
Enabling a foreign company hold Brazilian reais, for example, and do business there. That's like a very specific use case.
That's an important push.
That we want to address.
I agree. Thank you. And you want to say more?
No. I mean, it's a lot of work.
I'm going to cut you off anyway.
It's a lot of work.
Okay. Tom, you came to Chainlink from, God help us, Swift, right? And then you were at DTCC, right?
Yep.
Right? And then you went to Chainlink. So feel like you're surrounded by lunatics now in weird blockchain and crypto forums, or you feel at home? What do you feel?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Absolutely. No, it's in all seriousness, I mean, it gives me the opportunity. I can actually see where all the bodies are buried. I've been in the industry long enough to understand the inefficiencies in every aspect on both on payments and securities. And quite frankly, what we happen to be doing, we're serving, as I alluded to earlier, as the, providing the TCP IP, if you will, for acting as the internet for blockchain. So the problems that exist out there today, we have amazing blockchains all over the place. Everyone's creating new blockchains on a regular basis, or banks are looking to create their own coins. You have JPM, Citi, and there's a lot of others out there. The issue is that the assets and liquidity becomes locked. So you only can really work with them unless you're on the same chain. So what we're trying to do, we're blockchain agnostic. We like to work with everybody. So I think, that from our vantage point, and what I've seen, I'm actually loving the space. I think that this is a critical time in the industry. I think tokenization is in. Jenn and I were both happy to be at Saiz in Toronto last week. Maybe some of you may have been there as well. If you were to say, compare this year versus last year, I think a lot of the traditional banks were still skittish on the whole blockchain side of the business. Today, they're embracing it. And the topics that were discussed were not just about blockchain, but also about, AI and ChatGPT and everything. So it's...
I love it. So you were in I'm not going to say a dark place. I'm going to say an old place. And you're now seeing the light, and you love the light, and you bring your amazing initiatives from how Swift created interoperability into this world, into CCIP, right? Which brings me to my follow-up question, and I'll ask that to you, Guillaume, because this is the first time I'm seeing you, because you never made it to the prep sessions. Why not everyone's seeing the light? You tell me, as the 10th largest bank, why aren't the top 9 banks also not seeing the light? What changed in your mind to come into this?
So, okay, there is 2 answers to your question. On the personal questions,
yes.
Okay, I just joined the bank 2 years ago, just to disrupt the way people usually think. This is for the light. On the more global point of view, on the bank point of view, the bank start to hire guys like me, some weird guy from MIT with weird IDs from Silicon Valley, to disrupt what they used to do. And exactly what you said, that's the time to ask the real questions. What is needed? Why Swift is needed? What Swift is bringing compared to Stellar? What can we replace? Right. This is a good question to ask. Maybe there is no questions. Maybe the answer is, it's obvious. Exactly like the CEO from Templeton was doing. It's not fully yes or fully no. It depends. It's like Android and iPhone. Yeah. There is different point of view. There is different attitude. And what I love with blockchain is that it's very mathematical, very logic, and it's the time to ask ourselves the right questions. And same thing for any startups that I see, that I met in DeFi, in crypto space, something. There is a lot of good stuff that is done because those guys ask themselves the good questions. What is needed? What is not needed? To rethink the business model, rethink the job, rethink how can we do better, quicker, faster, cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. And Jenn,
can I interrupt?
Yeah,
you?
Interrupt away.
Okay, thank you. So
approach it?
I think it's no, not yet. We'll see how rowdy the crowd gets. So I think one of the things that's really cool about this panel is how many different stakeholders are represented up here. And as we think about, perhaps maybe I can wager we all want more efficient, faster, less expensive payment systems in the future, right? That form of global scalability requires not just early pioneers, crypto maximalists, yes. It also requires TradFi, and it requires operators from the previous system to fully achieve this faster, cheaper payment system. So it's really cool that we're all up here and bringing the different perspectives to the table. And just to build off of what Tom said from Saiz, it's Saiz, not Saibos. I was corrected many times last week. Is that what, and there was a statement on Danel's opening speech, and I think it was something to the extent of, it's an idea until it's not an idea. Yeah. I think what we're seeing right now and reflected up here is this tipping point in maturity and legitimacy, hopefully regulations soon to follow, and it's represented by how many different stakeholders you have talking about blockchain innovation right now.
Let's double click on that.
Triple
click on that.
Triple into it, yeah.
What standard that's now being created for interoperability would you bet that would win? Would it be what Swift is actually doing right now, getting into blockchain? Would it be the BRIC countries creating their own sort of new standards around interoperability for their own payment system? Yeah. What would any of you say is probably the one that you're betting on? And also, there's sort of a hidden question that I have is, do you think those who are creating those standards right now are just after power, money, or are they really into the pureness, goodness of the platform and ecosystem and blockchain? That's a very complex question.
I mean, it's D,
and
all
think
of the
you're
above.
representing the U.S. right now.
Oh,
I'm
no
kidding.
pressure. Give me that chair. No. So look, I think it is all of the above. At least for the immediate future, I would quantify in like a decade or two, right? So very normal for any innovation process for pioneers to be identifying use cases and solving real life problems. We've seen a lot of that highlighted on these stages already. Now we're at the point where governments are trying to understand how to engage and how to ensure safe deployment of systems that includes blockchain, right? And we're seeing institutions starting to adopt to make it more, I would say, like day-to-day use. If we think about tokenized securities, et cetera, that's where we see a lot of activity. It's going to stay in that chaotic space, I think, because we value choice. We have decades upon decades of legacy systems that are very expensive to replace, and we need to create bridges. These folks up here are doing that already. And I think markets and humans are going to drive what this looks like 30, 40 years from now, which are not these humans. We fall off the conveyor belt, right? Younger Jenn stands up. And I imagine then that we start to see a user interface where nobody actually knows what's on the back end. That is a seamless design, but we're able to move the money more efficiently.
So the CoinDesk headline should read, "We should replace all humans." No. Okay.
No, it means choice, which also means CBDC. And I think that's the part that maybe gets, spurs a lot of conversation, which is it is stablecoin, it is crypto, it is CBDC, and we need to find the objectives and use cases that each of those assets may fill, and then employ accordingly.
Thank you. The next one is, I want to focus on the exchange side. I've met, only in this conference alone, probably like 5 companies who told me that they're building a great product that will have a network of different payment aggregators or payment solutions. They're sort of creating their own standard now, which is, again, another side, and I'm not blaming anyone. Fireblocks has a network of its own. Should we open it as well for interoperability? Maybe, yeah. But I want to ask you from the exchange angle, right? Why haven't we seen any of the exchanges come together and say, you know what, we can also think about standards for payments, for interoperability, for joint liquidity pools? Why haven't we seen that happening? Well, or is that happening behind the scenes between you and CZ?
Not going to comment on that, but no. So my take on that is that the battle right now is bridging the fiat with crypto, making that bridge between the legacy financial system and the traditional financial system. So that's where I see a lot of people working now, and thanks. A lot of people, much better. A lot of people working now there, and it's a ton of work to integrate with individual partners and aggregate them, and then maybe we can talk about integrating between exchanges to solve the liquidity problem, which is also a very relevant problem there. But I see the battle being in the bridge from fiat to crypto right now.
Got it. And I guess, Tom, I sort of teed up to this to begin with. You came out with a protocol I think is amazing, right? The CCIP, and you've done experiments with Swift on it. Circle now has CCTP. Is it complementary? Is it like, will Paxos and PayPal come up with their own protocol now? We don't want that to happen, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's more complementary at the end of the day. For us, we're blockchain agnostic. It doesn't matter which blockchain we work with. At the end of the day, our goal is to connect to everyone. And truth be told, our opinion is also that in time, it won't matter what investors and people in general shouldn't really pay attention to which blockchain it's on, but rather that it is on blockchain. They're going to assume that's part of the fabric. And I think that's really where I think everything is going.
And Guillaume, I want to ask your point of view on where I think we would need interoperability most. I personally think CBDCs is humanity's opportunity to create interoperability for money. And it's not going that way right now. Like Brazil has created its own CBDC on a certain platform, Australia, UK doing some other things. As a banker, sorry, you wanted to comment on that, Tom?
Yeah, just one thing I'll mention is related to that. I think the other thing to keep in mind is piggybacking off of what Jenny Johnson happened to say from Franklin Templeton. I also firmly believe that the asset managers are going to lead us down that path. It's not just Franklin Templeton. They happen to be the first horse out of the gate. But if you look at the traditional way in which business takes place, it's always been the asset managers pushing on the banks and pushing on the brokers. The banks and brokers are custodying or transacting on their behalf. So really, the likes of Jenny as a pioneer and others that are out there are really going to be the ones that are going to lead us down that path. So I think that's just in time. But
no, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a good comment and a good call out. And Guillaume, back to the CBDC part, I guess. What are you witnessing from inside the ecosystem? From inside, even just in France, like, is there a talk with the central bank or regulator, something you can share about? Are they thinking about this as a global initiative, or is it a local initiative as well, and we're still not creating interoperability?
So I'm part of the discussion of the digital euro for Crédit Agricole towards European Central Bank, so I'm very well aware about all this stuff. Let's take more high about the situations. We have a global move to all the industry to the tokenizations. I think we all agree.
Yeah.
All the global industry is going to be tokenized. The blockchain bring a lot of new ID, new stuff, traceability, better, quicker, blah, blah, blah. And all the guys, asset management, insurance, bank, they think it's cool. And on the market, Euronext is moving to that direction too. They wanted to acquire, but they didn't go to the end, but they wanted to acquire. I think they acquired Tokeny, but they want to acquire another company yeah. on tokenization. And all the market is going to be tokenized too. So you can buy any share, Volkswagen share, on tokenization. Go ahead,
Tom. Just feel free to talk at any time.
Sorry. Just to add to what you're saying, and I think that what you're saying resonates quite well with me, is I also view everything that we're talking about and the movement that we're seeing, the industry going, if we had to look back, and if this happened back in 2008, 2009, we probably wouldn't have had the crash that we had.
That's a bold statement.
Right. That's a bold statement? Why?
That's a bold statement. I'm going to pivot really quickly to just say that something Guillermo just said is really, really important, which is what we're seeing, and I think CBDCs are indicative of this, is this systemic shift to digital, globally connected networks. So when we think about central bank digital currency, to me, it is just the next iteration of a form of public money. And we can talk about the values that digital public money may unlock in creating finality in the system broadly. But it is this I would say, governments understanding that the future is digital, seeing their citizenry taking up the attraction of accessing money, whether it's through a traditional bank account. By the way, that is not the way research is going. Folks are looking for access to money in many different manners now. But they are trying to understand how to exist in that future system. And part of that is central bank digital currency. I think those conversations are still siloed, as they should be, because every country is looking at their economy and understanding what are the objectives they're trying to achieve and what levers do they have to pull to achieve them. For some economies, CBDC may not be that solution. If you have a well-established payment system, such as the United States, right? Wholesale central bank digital currency, which involves the settlement of large-scale transactions, may be more appealing than a retail CBDC, where we're talking about P2P payments, right?
Yep.
These are very important conversations to be had. I think where we are right now is figuring out, Tom, to your point, how these disparate systems connect, because they need to be connected. And right now, I think, as I heard earlier, one of the biggest issues that Jenny had mentioned is around data silos in the existing system. And this is resulting in a lot of inefficiencies and expenses that then trickle down to the end user. So siloed, yes. CBDCs, I think, complete the digitization process. I love your statement about really being society's ability to step up. I agree with you. I think...
but it doesn't sound like you think that the governments will take it on themselves. It's like you think there's a UN of interoperability that's supposed to come in and do it.
Well, I would hope no government would take it on and then force it on its people.
No,
Money
I agree.
is a
That's already
social
happened. That's called the US
construct, right?
dollar, right?
Well, they're researching, right? And what it means is don't research behind a wall. It means research in a public and transparent way that integrates with the crypto community. Learn from what has been happening for a long time now. It integrates with TradFi, understand what the costs are for migrating to new infrastructure. It is a multi-stakeholder conversation that the government will perhaps be the convening power and the ultimate decision maker on. But we are just at the beginning of understanding that. I think that's okay.
No, okay, I get it. And Guillaume, by the way, if you want to continue your statement from before.
Yeah.
You can just relate it to what Jenn said. She said a lot of things that could piss people off.
And to say about what she said, so Europe has no choice, in fact. European Union has no choice to go to that direction, to CBDC. Because if they don't do it, it's going to be a dollarization of the total market. And the euros is going to be threatened by local stablecoin, or like we had with Libra, like we all were scared about Libra, or other stuff, or by dollars, all index on dollars. And Europe is a global country. Well, it's not a country, but it's a union, and we want harmonizations, and we want to manage ourselves the currency. And so this is why Europe has no choice to create digital currency on two ways. First way is wholesale, which has no problem. Wholesale, everybody's agree on that. Wholesale is money that we use between banks and between asset management, blah, blah, blah. And retail digital currency. And retail digital currency, it is what is in discussion right now with privacy, inclusions. There's a lot of things because we want this to be done with the people, for the people, and not against the people. We don't want something like we can have with E1, something very control of the population. We don't want that. We want something very freely that you can buy whatever you want with your retail euros without any control about anybody, that nobody could know what you do with your money.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Fede, I have to ask you, because you are probably the most up and to the right crypto person on this panel, probably. Does that all make sense to you? Or are you just thinking, no, we should come together as blockchains, tech providers, exchanges, and decide this on our own and not wait for the pyramid that the framework that you said in the beginning, right?
Well, I think that both tracks can go on independently. Every people that is working towards driving adoption, towards making better standards, towards enhancing interoperability, whether it comes from the pyramid, as you mentioned, or from being down in the weeds, I think it's all beneficial for the ecosystem. Yeah. So any innovation at this point is good.
So, and this is something I do sometimes in panels. I think you as the crypto, I'm sorry putting you as a crypto guy, but the one coming from an exchange, what would you want to ask a top banker like Guillaume?
Well, actually I was going to ask something that maybe Guillaume or maybe Tom could have an answer for that. It's about CBDCs actually. And you very well mentioned that the asset managers are the ones that drive adoption in the end. They're the ones that push the money. But do you think that CBDCs will also be adopted through asset managers, or are they on a different league? Are they above that?
I think they'll have no choice to embrace it. I'm not convinced that in each market, whether or not blockchain will be adopted for the CBDCs themselves in each siloed market. It's more to what Jennifer was saying is the interconnectivity between the CBDCs that are out there. But this is a great question. I think the ecosystem will have no choice but to use it. I don't know if you have any.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Tom, can we just focus for a second on the shift that Chainlink did from just being an Oracle-like company to now pushing standards and bringing people from Swift for that? Just focus on that for 1 second. How did that happen over the last 4 years, 5 years?
They took a look at the tech stack that the company had, and it was a natural. It basically said that the next they were able to see down the road what the market's really looking for. Like I said earlier, blockchains are being created on a regular basis. People are creating their own coins, but there's no way in which you can transact from one to the other. So in the traditional Web 2 world, you have delivery versus payment, the immutable, irrevocable exchange of cash and securities. The problem with that is that cash could be handed over before the security, and thereby you have exposure. Whereas in the blockchain world, you have an atomic swap, so that does not happen. So you're able to move assets from one to the other. That's exactly what we want to facilitate. So they were able to evolve, and thankfully they did.
Okay, that's fascinating. You want to say something? You're just,
Go ahead.
Just want to rest a bit?
I could say many things.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I want to dedicate the last several minutes to the audience, in a way, to people who are building here. Guillaume, I want to start with you. You said right now your bank, Crédit Agricole, is actually building a lot of stuff, right, for blockchain. You're building probably custodial solutions, buy, sell, hold, I guess, maybe derivatives, maybe tokenized assets. I'm just waiting for you to nod. But what is missing? Like, if I'm a builder, I'm in the audience, what is missing for you when you look at this ecosystem?
So we're working on some project, not all, not a lot of things. Working on some project, and something very important for us, for big bank or big asset management or whatever, it's regulations. Regulation is super crucial for us. We do the police for the governments on the financial markets, and we are very positive about any wonderful protocols that you propose us. We are very keen. I look at nearly everything that startups send to me and my team, in order that we can see how it can be deployed. So don't hesitate to send us your protocol, in order that we can look at it, see how it goes, see how it can be included in the actual regulation system. I think in Europe we have done a wonderful job with MiCA to give clear rules that doesn't exist in the States, about what we can do and what we cannot do. It's not finished yet. There is a lot of things about NFT still.
So my one question was, Guillaume mentioned the European Union has to move to a CBDC. Jenn, you're at the Digital Dollar Project. My question is, we understand I think most people understand what a digital dollar CBDC would mean for individual users, but what about what it means for the central bank, right? Aren't they giving up a tremendous amount of ability to regulate or control and manage the market itself? Like, is that even possible that they would give up that control?
Good question. Thank you.
Well, I think I was invoked second, so.
Go on.
Do you want, you know?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So the question is, are central banks willing to give up control? Is that essentially boiled down? Yeah. Is it achievable? Sure. So I think, right, like I wrote as I was preparing for this, the two central bank, this is the remit of central banks broadly, maintain financial stability and direct monetary policy. And I think understanding how to do that in a digital future is exactly what you're seeing play out through a lot of the experiments that are happening, some through public-private partnership. I think we talked about Brazil a bit as a panel earlier, and the PIX network. We see Bank of International Settlements partnering with banks. A lot of activity. I don't have an answer to that. I mean, I think it's important for our global citizenry to have government structures. When I think about protecting privacy and stopping censorship, which is a very deep tenet for the digital dollar project as we think about central bank digital currency. I don't think adoption happens if we don't figure that out globally. That happens, in my opinion, in combination with public and private institutions. So I think understanding and prioritizing what that is exactly, when you say power, I would say financial stability. That's pretty critical to me, particularly when we're thinking about changing a global infrastructure. So it's just understanding and clearly defining the objectives and only then saying, can the technology get us there or not, right? And if not, then how do we achieve that?
Thank you. I think, first of all, I think we need to talk more. But because we only have 4 seconds, I want to thank you all, amazing panelists. Guillaume, Tom, Fede, Jenn, I think you were amazing. I want to thank this amazing crowd who made it to this panel and came to this amazing Stellar conference. Thank you, Stellar, for making this happen. And I wish you all a great day. I'll see you around.
Thank you.